Alright, good morning. I wanted to do a quick video on prepping food. I'm going to cook some steaks real fast, get them ready, pack them up, take them for lunch, breakfast, dinner. This is a 12-inch cast iron pan. I got the flame on. I'm going to put a little duck fat in here. I don't typically wash these pans. I use them every day. I leave the fat behind, or a little bit of fat behind. In this case, I'm adding a little duck fat. Duck fat and eating duck is part of my experiment for hopefully reducing my CAC score, or my coronary artery calcium score, from 8 to 0. Duck fats, duck meat is rich in K2, and K2 is a vitamin that helps the body move calcium around. And a coronary artery scan is a high-speed X-ray or CAT scan that detects calcium in the coronary arteries, and the calcium is usually laid down over the atherosclerotic plaques to stabilize them. And once the chronic inflammation in the arteries is gone, then the body typically wants to remove those plaques, and thus the calcified cap on them, the stabilizing agent. So the idea is, if you got plenty of K2, you're just going to help your body do that work. So I'm going to show this whole process from start to finish without editing it, to show people how fast they can prep their food. You can see here I got some steaks. I got 4 New York strips. Not quite as fatty as a ribeye. I tend to eat a little bit leaner meat because I'm working on body composition. My goal is putting on muscle and taking off fat. So trying to get leaner and more muscular. Anyways, I like a little seasoning on my steak most of the time. Sometimes I just have salt. So I'll hit one side with a little bit of steak seasoning, just basically little onions and garlic and salt and pepper and stuff like that. And you get the pan hot. This stove tends to be very hot, so once I get the pan warm, I turn it down, and then the steaks go in. You'd be surprised how much you can fit in a pan this size. I like my steaks on the rare side, so I don't cook them that long. I do like to cook them with the lid on. One of the things about cooking with the lid on is it keeps moisture in, keeps heat in, and that helps keep the meat more moist, and keeps grease from splattering out, which I don't tend to cook on very high temperature, so a lot of times I don't get a lot of splatter. If you do like to cook really hot, you can get yourself one of these. It's basically a screen that traps the grease in. You put that over the food like that, and then keep stuff from splattering out. Save you a lot of time on cleaning up. So if you're like me, you don't have a lot of free time, you don't like spending a lot of time cleaning up, you just want to get your food cooked the way you want it and get in and get out. So a lot of times I'm cooking my meals for the day in the morning while I'm getting ready for work. Sometimes the day before. Obviously on the weekends, if I have time, I do a little prep. As you can see, I got 4 good-sized steaks in here, cooking away. In fact, this was, I'll tell you how much meat this was. That is 3.8 pounds worth of beef. So that's more than I'll need today. I seasoned one side, put it down on the fat, on the melted duck fat, and put some salt on here. This is actually the Redmond's Redmond real salt, and then a little bit of the pre-made steak seasoning. If you're concerned about seasonings, always read the labels. Look at the ingredients. This has coarse salt, black pepper, red pepper, garlic. It does have sunflower oil in it, one of the last ingredients fortunately, and some paprika. So there's a little bit of oil in there, but a little bit of plant oil, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So anyways, I'm going to put the lid on that for a second. I like to turn my handles away from the edge. That way I don't bump into it, knock it on the floor like an idiot. So and I might turn this up just a little bit more. Got some cold meat in there. And yeah, you can, you know, typically it's best if you let your meat sit out and get to room temperature, but then we got to ask ourselves, what exactly is room temperature? And when you're in a hurry, are you really going to worry about it that much? Because you can get a really good product even if you take the meat directly out of the refrigerator. In fact, you can cook a frozen steak and get a really good result. If you've got enough fat in the pan and get it up to temperature, you can actually get a nicely cooked rare steak and have that a very, very thin layer of gray where the surface sort of meets the cooked area. So if you're curious about that, there's been videos done on it. People have done these experiments hundreds of times. So just because you heard some chef say you got to have your steak room temperature and this, that, and everything has to be perfect, trust me, when you're prepping your food every day, you don't have to worry about that stuff near as much. You're going to get the hang of it. You're going to get a knack for knowing how to cook your meat, how long it takes. You don't even need to watch the clock. You can pretty much just sort of, it's like riding a bicycle, right? You just kind of get a feeling for what you're doing. And naturally this pan is going to be over 160 degrees, so any germs that were in it are going to get annihilated by the heat. So, and when you cook in a pan every day and you leave some of the fat behind, I don't think anything has a chance to grow in there anyways, so I don't worry about it. And if you wash a cast iron pan with soap and water, it's just going to rust anyways, and then you've got to turn around and season it all over again, which is a pain in the butt. But if you just use it every day, occasionally, you know, you might burn something, or if you cook, you know, vegetables in it, cook some spinach in there, it's gonna rust it. So then you might need to scrape it and clean it and start over. But if you don't, if you're just cooking your meat in it, you can just let it go forever. So stuff really doesn't stick. It doesn't really require hardly any maintenance. So let's see here. The cast iron pans last forever. I've got some cast iron pans that are family hand-me-downs. Who knows how many generations old they are. They're the same as the day they were bought, basically. And this one was one I got for a gift from my sister, I think exactly a year ago. She sent it to me for my birthday or Christmas or something. And I use it a lot because I can cook a lot at one time. So let me grab my fork. We can start flipping these over and checking the other side. I usually only flip them once or twice, just depends. So as you can see here, I rotate them, I flip them. The center of the pan is always a little bit hotter than the outside edges because the burner's only so big, and this is a 12-inch pan. But if you flip them over and rotate them, you can see these are nicely cooked on the outside. And like I said, I like my meat on the rare side. So I do kind of get it warmed all the way through, but I don't like really well cooked meat at all. I grew up eating relatively rare steak. In fact, I grew up grilling everything on the grill. I live in Southern California, and you know the weather's usually nice so you can grill all the time. But going outside and grilling when I'm trying to get ready for work in the morning just doesn't work for me. So I typically just cook them on the stove in the pan, just because it saves me time and it tastes good, you know. So I was actually looking for my thermometer, which I thought I had handy and waiting, but I have a non-contact thermometer that I check things with once in a while, just out of curiosity. So if you're curious about, you know, how hot things are, you could check the surface with a non-contact thermometer if you can find it. Here it is, the other cover. So this is an old Raytech that I've had for a million years. And this will tell you the surface temperature, and we can see the bottom of the pan is 160 degrees. So I don't know if you can see that in the camera. It's a little over. It's 170. So pretty much nothing survives at that temperature. And a solid piece of meat from a trusted source usually isn't contaminated internally. If you buy ground beef or something and it goes through machinery to be ground up, those blades that grind the meat can actually transfer bacteria and spread it all around. But when you're dealing with solid chunks of meat, you tend not to have those issues anyways. So I always talk to the meat cutters, even at the big box store, you know. I'll talk to those guys, and you know, they typically are pretty good at inspiring some confidence in how well they clean. And I know, like the store I buy most of my meat at, they have a giant glass window. You can see those guys in there cleaning the equipment and cutting the meat, and most of them are very friendly. And talk to them about the meat, talk to them about what kind of meat they get in and how they break it down and all that stuff. Most of those people are happy to talk about it. So anyways, I eat a lot of meat. I do eat some of my meat raw. I enjoy raw steak and raw ground beef. I do have a grinder when I have time. I grind stuff myself, but I enjoy plenty of ground beef from the store. Especially like grass-fed ground beef is a lot more affordable than steaks are. A lot easier to get as well. So anyways, as you can see, these steaks are mostly done already. Usually at the end here, I turn them up higher to get a little bit more of a sear on them. And then I flip them one last time, and that's all I got to do to get my steaks the way I want them. So we're going to turn these guys over. You can see this is pretty red right here. This is going to be in there. I'll put these steaks in a glass pan and take them to work to eat. Actually, probably going to eat one of these before I go. I'm doing a lot of weightlifting, and my appetite's definitely increased. I take the weekend off and I don't lift on the weekend, and my appetite goes down a bit. And then as the week progresses and I'm going to the gym Monday through Friday, by some Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, my appetite tends to go up quite a bit. So anyways, the nice thing about cast iron pans is once you get them seasoned, they tend to be non-stick. They're good for searing. Even with the fat in there, you can get a nice crispy sear on it if you got time. I don't bother half the time, because as much as I like that nice crispy sear, it's not really all that important. So, and a little variety never hurts. You don't have to cook the steak the same way every time, you know. So you can see there's a little bit of seasoning spread everywhere, and there's plenty of plenty of meat in there. I think on an average day I probably eat 2 pounds on a light day, and then now I'm probably on a, when I'm hungry, really hungry, I'll probably eat 3 to 4 pounds. I do usually have some cooked ground beef. That's kind of like a filler. And I also make a lot of jerky. This is good food for taking with you. I didn't even cut the fat off. I'm working on producing some biltong here. Give that a try. Everybody tells me it's the greatest jerky in the world, so I'm gonna do some biltong. But anyways, it's good having something like this. So when your appetite fluctuates from your workouts or whatever, you have a little extra food around that doesn't spoil. You take it with you. I've taken it on the plane before. So anyways, this pan is real hot right now. I don't want to leave them in here too long. They're just starting to get a little bit of searing on them. That's about it for me. So I'm going to turn the heat off now. I'm going to put one of these bad boys on a plate to rest, to eat, and then take this one right here. This will be breakfast. These other ones are going to go in a container and go with me to work. So that's it, nothing fancy. I'm just going to put those on a plate to cool. Put them in a container later. There you go. Some nice steak. I typically pour the fat in the pan into the container. I use a lot of glass containers like this. I use a lot of containers like this to put my lunches in. They have locking lids. They have a gasket in them, silicone gasket. They clamp down, they don't leak. So you could take your lunch with you. I throw mine in a backpack. I stack these containers in a backpack. Take them with. I got a little mini fridge at work that I share with the boss, and that's how I do it. So that's making, you can see there, I made almost 4 pounds of meat in a very short period of time. So anybody could do it.